You're listening to the Modern Life Mystic Woman podcast, hosted by Jen Neville and Taiha Lee.
Modern Life Mystic Woman started as a conversation about writing, dreaming, dating, magic, God, tarot, astrology, and our mutual passion for consciously creating both spiritually fulfilling and totally luxurious lifestyles.
We're all about living in alignment, being tapped in AF, and going all in on ascension. We're committed to intuition, inspiration, and creation.
We are the bold and the spiritual, and we're moving cosmic mountains together. Hello, you guys. Welcome back to another episode. We're so excited about today's show. We are getting into all the things that you want: twin flames, soulmates, karmic relationships, even spiritual dating, all of the things related to love. So I'm super stoked to dive in and hear all of Jen's amazing wisdom on this topic. I've even myself gone to her for personal readings related to love and all of the things. And, you know, personally being a Libra moon and rising, I'm all about the love and the relationships. So I'm thrilled to be talking about this today. And, you know, that's really how I found Jen anyway, was through her YouTube channel, and how I imagine a lot of you have connected with her as well, is wanting guidance about love and, you know, hearing and seeing this information that maybe we can get a glimpse into our destiny through the cards and about all the things related to twin flames and relationships. So Jen, are you ready to dive into this topic?
Totally. I love that intro. Thank you. Yeah, it's so interesting you say that's how everybody, you know, probably finds me based on love readings, but that's really how I kind of got into the YouTube space, because I too at one point was watching all these readings and watching all these like twin flame readings and kind of learning more about that aspect. So it's really interesting to me how kind of my view has changed from starting the channel and to now about what I know about the twin flame journey. And mind you, I'm no expert. I just have my own view and my own opinion. So I always say, you know, just take what you hear. If it resonates, it resonates. If it doesn't, then don't force it. I say that in my readings as well. Like, if the message doesn't resonate, do not force it. So I'm just sharing my views. And yeah, I'm excited to hear about the spiritual dating, because there's some things that I am still unfamiliar with. But yeah, twin flames, that is just something you see floating around everywhere, like in the spiritual community. It's like this coveted relationship. It's been so romanticized, I feel. um I'm curious as to what your understanding of it is, or kind of how you have interpreted it as just observing or watching videos.
Yeah, I mean, well, we're going to get into how the twin flame relates to the Lover's card in the tarot, as well as the Devil card. So I'm really excited to dive into that with you, because I think that lends a lot of insight into what this whole twin flame thing is. I also always think of, when I think of twin flames, or just twins in general, like the Gemini sign,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm. Which is the Lover's card.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I guess, like, I mean, if people are just like starting to listen to this right now, like maybe the first place to start is like,
What is a twin flame?
what is a twin flame? Yeah. Can you dive into that?
So basically what a twin flame is somebody who, you know, you have your soulmates who you reincarnate into multiple lifetimes with. They're here to teach you a lesson. But your twin flame is essentially somebody who was cut from the same soul as you. They are your perfect mirror. So your soulmate is your perfect match, but your twin flame is your perfect mirror. So this is going to be somebody in your lifetime who triggers the hell out of you. You know, soulmates come in and they teach you karmic lessons, but your twin flame is literally And this is basically what it is explained as. Your twin flame is somebody who is your exact mirror. So they're going to reflect your shadows to you. But here's the thing, your twin flame, because you guys are the same soul, they're never going to hurt you. A
Mm.
karmic relationship might hurt you and that pain might open you up to something, but a twin flame relationship is never meant to hurt you. It's only going to help you grow. You guys reincarnated in this lifetime. You probably have a soul's mission together. I think everybody has a twin flame. But some people didn't come to this lifetime with theirs. Maybe theirs is guiding them from the 5D. And that's where I kind of say, take it how it resonates, because sometimes I feel if you have this innate knowing that my twin flame is here on this earth, then they probably are. But also, we're our own twin flames, it's that kind of, and getting into the tarot part. But I mean, because you have told me you don't really have that strong pull towards that twin flame word, right?
Like I've experienced much more like that soulmate karmic relationship energy rather than what I've experienced with a twin flame. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely personally I've experienced a lot of soulmate karmic relationships. I felt at one point that I did have a twin flame, but I'm open-minded. But I do feel this sense of I came here to meet somebody and I came here to work through something with somebody. I don't know. We'll see how that plays out. Not attached to that right now. But going based off of, tarot, kind of how we were going to address this, because that's basically what twin flame is. It's been highly romanticized, I feel like, as this connection that's supposed to be like super agonizing, but in the end, if this is your twin flame, you're supposed to end up together. But the reality is that we all have free will. We all have lessons that we need to learn. And it's like, my twin flame is married to another person. Well, then let them be married. That's probably a lesson they have to go through. Don't agonize yourself and allow like other soulmates into your life.
And probably
Um,
a lesson that you have to go through if that's
Yeah. And
experience.
that's something that you have to there's so much karma. I could go on forever about this stuff, but I will. I'm going to talk about the Lover's card right now. Going to focus on that.
Okay. Yeah, let's start there.
It's only because I get so many messages about it that it's kind of and yeah, I'll start with the Lover's card. So basically, if anybody pulls up a picture of the Lover's card, the Rider Waite tarot, it's basically like a whole Adam and Eve thing. And the interesting thing is the Devil card is the same exact card, except instead of an angel, it's the devil. And that's kind of the whole Adam and Eve story. And you see here in the card, it's the snake whispering in the girl's ear. She's standing by that apple tree. And also for my females out there, I always love to look at that and be like, the man's standing by a dead tree, and we're standing by this like apple tree, and this like it's growing, it's fertile. And snakes to me just represent knowledge. And it's by her head, it's whispering in her ear. And that's kind of the same thing in the devil card. If you notice, the devil's hand is on her head, and devil's hand is on the masculine's like nether regions.
Oh,
So
interesting. Okay. So, yeah, I just want to interject there with kind of what you said about how the female, because this is a really cool topic about
yeah,
the feminine masculine balance and sacred relationships. Because another tarot reader at one point pointed out to me that same thing about how she's under the tree with the apples, like the very fertile kind of energy, and then his tree, there's also like flames on it too. If you
there's flames on it. Oh, I guess I always thought that was leaves, but yeah, you're right, they're little flames. And
yeah,
he has a flame in the devil card by him as well.
Yeah, and then another thing that was pointed out to me was how the man is looking at the woman, but the woman is looking at the angel.
Oh, oh, so the man is actually not even looking at the woman. So I've always interpreted, yeah, the woman's looking at the angel. The man's kind of looking down to the ground.
Okay.
But in the devil card, the man is looking off into the distance. He's not even looking at the female. So it's like he's avoidant a little bit. But anyways, I think the cards too, it's symbolic of, because the lover's card comes up and people are like, oh, that's about soulmates, but it's also about kind of marrying your masculine and feminine. And that could be, something that you have a lot of knowledge on, I feel like. I feel like you've done a lot of work with your feminine ascension and mastering the masculine feminine. I feel like that's like the biggest thing. You want to manifest this twin flame into your life, but you have to heal, like you have to kind of integrate your duality.
Totally.
And that's how I see the Lover's card. Like, if I'm stripping it from, like, the romantic purpose, I see it as, you know, it is that mirror. It is that we have masculine qualities within ourselves, we have feminine qualities, and we have to learn how to, think with our heads, like, balance it between our heads and our passions or,
Yeah, exactly, and that's the thing, like, we're always attracting our mirror, or we're always attracting what we're a vibrational match for, so, like, if we as women are overexerting, like, if we're living way more predominantly in our masculine energy, then we're gonna be attracting these men who are way more, like, beta, like not
Yeah.
maybe ambitious, because everything has to balance out, right? So like, and so that's why a lot of women can kind of struggle with like, oh, like I'm really attracted to that like alpha type, but he doesn't seem to be attracted to me. But it's like, because he literally cannot be attracted to you because you're living in your masculine energy. So
Yeah. Mhm.
it's such a fascinating topic when you start getting into it.
Yeah, I have a friend who I always tell her because she's like, "Oh, I always attract these feminine guys." I'm like, "Baby, that's because 'cause you're living in that masculine, like, you are dominant," which isn't a bad thing, but it's understanding, sometimes when you are in that domineering energy and wanting to dominate the situation, you have to be careful 'cause that man will become, if that man's interested in you, or if that's like, he'll become submissive, and that's, you never want to emasculate a man
Exactly.
if that's what you're wanting. And it's the same, like, I don't, I can't speak from the mindset of a guy on how they feel about women, but it's so important to let the man be the man.
Yeah.
Let
Yeah.
him, if that's what you want. But if you want a man that you can control, that's a different story.
Yeah. Exactly.
But yeah, the worst thing you can do is emasculate a man because, then you're going to get that insecure, feminine, like hyper emotional, jealous type of guy. I don't know. That's my take on that.
Yeah. And so,
But
like, with the whole twin flame thing and like the lover's card and this whole mirror energy is like really part of this like deep shadow work and like this ascension process is balancing out that feminine masculine energy within yourself and kind of learning how to dance back and forth between the two. I mean, like if you are a woman, if you're feminine, you're going to want to be more in your feminine energy, but you're going to want to be able to start being aware of when you go back and forth. So for example, like even doing this podcast or like anything that you're taking like more action business, anything like that is going to be more of an masculine energy, whereas leaning back, being more receptive, being more creative, being more like tapped in spiritually, that's all feminine stuff. So like when you can start to understand both of these sides of yourself, it can become this like dance that you go back and forth with. And then that's how you're going to attract a man who's more balanced as well, by you being that.
yeah, I totally agree. And it's like once you learn about it, you can have fun with it too, because it's like sometimes I want to go out and be in that masculine energy of, I'm going to go up and talk to somebody and I'm going to be that like sometimes, I want to be in my masculine energy
Totally.
because it
Well,
gives me that feeling, that role reversal feeling of like, I'm the one in charge here.
yeah.
But yeah, I think that in regards to the whole twin flame thing, it's a whole interesting thing. And even talking about mirrors, it's funny to me to see the mirror between the devil and the lover's card. They're literally mirrors of one another, which is kind of, speaking on that we have this duality to us, this light and dark duality, and it doesn't have to be like, oh my god, this darkness is terrible. It's like when we face those shadows and we become kind of comfy with them or just accept them and own them, then we can start working, we can start lightening up these shadow aspects of ourselves. And I feel like that's the twin flame journey.
I love that you're touching on that because, yeah, it is when you stop resisting your shadows and you start really honoring them and like working with them, like that becomes your power. Like your energy becomes so much more potent when you can kind of dance with your own shadow and like use that, you know, you can direct really powerful energy with that.
Yeah, and I had, like, my own personal experience with, how I kind of came to terms with my own shadow was I was journaling and I was writing a letter. I like to write letters to, like, the people who I'm upset over or, trying to release. I like to write letters, and I kind of do the free flow, like, I let myself just kind of really feel what I'm writing, and I had written this thing. I was like, if I truly, because this was at that point in my life where I was that fixed him girl. Oh my God, I want to fix him and I'm going to love you despite all your bad qualities. And let me tell you something, when a guy's telling you, I'm bad for you, you don't want to date me, listen to him because
I was just gonna say, I hope you say listen to him.
listen to him because one, he's telling you in a very nice way that he's just not available. He's
Mhm.
not available. And if a guy is sitting there saying that to you, this is from what I've learned. So I was the fix it girl, and I was that girl who would just, I don't even care that you have problems. And he's like, God, I don't want to be with you. Like in so many ways, that's what he's telling me.
Yeah.
But it was like, or and I'm sitting there wanting to fix him when I should be fixing myself or giving myself that same love. So I'd written in my journal, I was like, if I can accept the chaos in other people, I need to believe that other people will accept the chaos in me. And I knew in that moment I had just hit something so powerful. And from there, I made this complete shift in my life that I was like, you know what? And I almost started testing it out. I almost just came into connections being my true, authentic, like kind of crazy dramatic self. And I was met with different types of people who kind of just accept. They're like, "Oh, that's Jen, and we're still going to be around her and like, we're going to love her." And it was because I was choosing to love myself.
Well, and that's just it, right? It's like we teach people how to treat us and love us. Even, I mean, yeah, we do it like in the physical world by like actually showing them, but we're doing it energetically all the time. Like, if
Yeah,
again, if everything's a mirror, the way we love ourselves, the man or woman, whoever is going to show up is like going to love us the way that we expect to be loved because we're already practicing that with ourselves.
exactly. And just to preface it, from that day, I have yet to manifest another fix it situation.
Oh my God, I love that. And what a testament to how powerful writing and journaling is for this shadow work.
Yeah, totally. It's just like, when I go through my shadow phases, I really, really, for me, writing is such a powerful tool, as obviously it is with you. But I really go through phases where I'll write and I'll just let myself free write. It doesn't have to be like this perfect thing. Sometimes I literally will catch myself saying like a negative comment, like they're never going to like me. And I'll immediately write in my journal like an affirmation. And it's like I crawl it in there. Like, I'm like, no, we don't believe that statement. So I'm like writing so there's parts of my journal that it probably looks like the scribbles of a mad woman because it's just like, I am powerful. I am beautiful. But it's like that kind of helps me. I'm like, no, I reject that thought. And then I grab my journal. I am lovable.
Yeah. Well, and this is so interesting because this is like what books of like a book of shadows is like a witch's book of her stuff, and it's like working through your shadows in that whole process.
Yeah, and it's fun to keep the journals too because I'll dive back and look at some of the things that I wrote about, and I'm just like, wow, how minuscule that was.
Mhm. But at the time, it feels so
So
intense.
real, yeah. So that's like I have a journal that's probably dedicated to just one person. And
Mm,
now when I read it, I'm like a little bit embarrassed. I'm like, oh my God, you spent so much time and energy on this person.
right.
But yeah, I think journaling can be so powerful, especially anybody who's dealing with the inability to let go of a romantic situation. Because the reality is, so long as you try to control the situation, it's not going to work.
And, like, I think it's so important, like, when we're in those situations, and, I've been there as well, and wanting, like, a particular person, like, so much.
Yeah.
And the thing, though, that has really supported me throughout that process is just, again, constantly looking inward and asking myself, like, what is this bringing up in me? Why am I so attracted to this person? Like, what qualities about them am I so attracted to? Like, really prompting all of these questions to, like, get to the deeper feeling, because you know what? So most of the time, like 99.9% of the time, it's really not about the other person. It's about what they're
No,
bringing up in you.
totally. Totally.
And I think these people that we maybe can become obsessed with in a way, or really desire a relationship with them. And again, I think this ties really beautifully into the karmic relationships or the
Mhm.
soulmates, because I believe that people can teach us just as much in their absence as they do in their presence. And so, I've had a particular, you know, romantic infatuation, we'll call it, that, went on for years and years and years. And it was only a couple brief encounters I had with this guy. But there was something like so, it was like, something was so deeply spiritual about it, and
Yeah.
it's like nothing for years and years, like nothing really ever lived up to those few brief experiences I had with this guy.
Yeah.
And he was always in the back of my mind. And really, now that I've been on this journey of being single for just about a year, kind of right now, which feels like the greatest gift that I've been able to give to myself, because I was in like a long-term relationship, um, and two relationships for about 10 years before this, before this past year. And thinking about this guy from like my past, from my early 20s, like, though we never reconnected physically, that relationship, or that, when I allowed myself to be like, okay, this isn't even about him at all, this is about some kind of feeling that he's evoking in me. What can I learn, and what adjustments can I make in my own life to get the feeling I'm looking for? It's not even about him. Does that make sense?
Totally. Yeah. I feel like I mean, I would love to narrow it down to one infatuation, but I've had more infatuations than I can count. But I've had two significant ones. One was somebody that I actually like dated, and very much so karmic relationship, like very much so. I mean, I remember one time like we were talking together and he had said, he'd be like, you're either a lesson or a blessing. And I just would look at him like, why are you saying that? And now looking back on it, I'm like, "Oh my god, he was so wise." He
Yeah.
knew, he knew, I just didn't wanna see it.
Mhm.
So, it was like it took me 2 years to get over him. 2
Yeah.
years to get over him, and I was going through, not letting go of my golf career, and that was just I kind of had this realization one day where I was like, "Oh my god, no wonder I keep manifesting toxic relationships into my life. My whole life is toxic. Like,
Mm,
I am in this toxic relationship." Because I remember the day that I was, like, deciding to quit golf, I was crying, and I'm like, "I love it so much. I love this sport so much, and I give and I give and I give, and I get nothing back." And that's when I realized, I'm like, "Oh my god, this sounds like all the relationships in my life." And I'm
right.
like, "Why am I giving to something that I don't feel that I get back from?" And then that kind of opened that can of worms of like, where's my self-worth at here?
Yeah.
And it's like that's a scary thing to look into, but I feel like anybody who's in a connection where they're not getting what they want out of it, you have to ask yourself that question, you know? And it's so scary to look at, to be like, "Wow, I'm not loving myself. I'm not believing that I can find better than this." And for me, that one guy was kind of my first experience. So I literally just like didn't know. I didn't know that there'd be anybody else.
Mhm.
And kind of what helped me get over was finding somebody that I was like, "Oh, I can feel like this again."
Yeah.
And surprisingly enough, I didn't get infatuated with that one, but yeah, there was another one, and that's like the one who I'm like, "Oh my god," was my twin flame, and I went through this obsession with the twin flame topic. Obsession. I was watching tarot videos all the time, and I was constantly distracting myself from fixing parts of my life that just needed fixing. Like, this was after I'm finishing golf and I'm kind of filling my space with this guy. And I'm just wasting all this time thinking about this guy, my twin flame, but doing nothing to elevate myself. And
Right.
then, so obviously, I'd start the YouTube channel. I start the YouTube channel. I'm finally starting to, support myself, make money for myself. And then from a year after I started the channel, like to now, it's kind of wild to me, my shift on the twin flame thing. One, because I look at that guy and I'm like, is that is that my twin flame?
Mm,
Do I really want that to be my reality?
right.
Like, do I really want that guy as my twin flame? And then it opens up like that prompt to the universe where I'm like, "Hey, if you have something better to send me, I'm all in."
Totally. And I think this is where, like, what is the line between this whole spiritual twin flame thing and just like unhealthy, toxic relationship patterns? And I think so many people who are becoming obsessed with the whole like you kind of mentioned this like fantastical idea. It's like and I never really use this term, but it feels relevant right now, but like spiritual bypassing, it feels like a way to like spiritually bypass all these sort of toxic behaviors, which really aren't our fault in relationships. Like we're
Yeah,
taught these from a very young age. And so a lot of us, one of the things I've been really conscious of reprogramming in this last year is my attraction toward unavailability.
yeah,
And so many people have this, especially women, because let's face it, like most fathers aren't really emotionally available. So then we're attracted to other men who are not emotionally available, and we're constantly seeking that attention, right? And so it takes a lot of conscious reprogramming to shift your perspective and really be committed to that and know that like you deserve someone who is fully present for you.
totally. And if you feel that you don't, then that's a reflection of, what you need to work on. And I'm not by any means judging, because my first connection, I was the connection that I felt um the most connected to, the karmic relationship. was I was a side chick. That man had a girlfriend. Whether he lied to me, whether he kept it a secret, I knew the reality. I turned a blind eye to it and I let myself go along with the fantasy. And it had to be in a sense of like, I remember like one time my friend was just, I woke up because she was like, Jen, you know what? I can no longer support you with
Mhm.
this guy. And I was just kind of like, damn, like, you need to look into what you're doing. Like, when did your standards get so low? Or what is it within you that feels that this is how you should be treated? And it was like on a daily basis. I mean, if I dip back into that energy, it's like on a daily basis feeling this like knot within your stomach and being like sick every single day
Yeah.
over like what is he doing, who's he doing it with, like where is he going, and it was just so toxic. And then it's kind of just waking up and being like, all right, there has to be better than this, and
Yeah,
there
totally.
totally is.
And I think that's why it's so important to, to really look at these people, these relationships, these men, any of these karmic relationships, like as they are your teachers, and their job, their role in these situations is like, and it always helps me to think about like we both signed up for this before we were born. Like we
Yeah,
both signed up for this.
totally.
And like it part of their lesson, or part of our lesson and what they're here to teach us is like, yeah, when is enough, and when are you going to stand up for yourself, when are you going to realize you desire and deserve more, and what are you going to, like, when are you going to walk away. And I really want to touch on this, um like throughout this show, is like really giving people kind of like actionable takeaways of how to know when it's time to leave those karmic relationships, and how we can, the inner work required to like not repeat certain patterns, because that's really
Oh,
the
yeah,
hard part.
that's huge, and
Yeah.
that was a big learning process for me about the repeating, because and it was like a common theme that I always find guys with girlfriends,
Mm.
and then I kind of once I had ironed something out, like, I had this one person, and this was like, mirrored situation, and that's why with the twin flame thing, your perfect mirror, honestly, everybody's your perfect mirror.
Yeah.
Everybody's reflecting something back to you. So
So
in this one situation, there's this guy who is he's got I'm pretty sure he's got a girlfriend, won't fess up to it, and it's kind of like, okay, I'm playing along, but it's at the same time, I kind of looked inwards and I'm like, why do I always attract this? And I had kind of pinpointed basically, I'm like, oh, I need the security of a guy with a girlfriend, and this is going to be really messed up. But because I want that female there so that I can compare myself and then so I can reiterate that negative feeling that I'm not enough. I'm
mm,
not enough. So I put that female in the picture just to remind me in a sick, messed up way that, hey, you're not enough. So then that's obviously something you got to work on. And now, guys with girlfriends, don't give them the time of day. Once I assessed that, I was like, you know what? I am enough. I deserve more than a guy who is with somebody else. So let me make myself fully present and, or like let me find somebody who is fully available, fully present to me. And that doesn't mean you have to jump into a relationship, but at the same time, be aware. Be aware of what you're triggering yourself with.
that's so powerful.
Yeah, because sometimes we put situations in our lives just to reiterate some effed up belief that we have about ourselves.
Well, and this is such a good segue to, in my experience, how something similar has, whatever, shown up. And I had this realization just about a year ago that this was a pattern I was playing out, and very similar. um Whereas I was never in that exact dynamic, but the dynamic I was in, so I was with this, and this is kind of like, I guess, my karmic relationship. I was with a guy for over 7 years. We were engaged. I was very like deeply connected with his family. We had been friends for like 10 years before we ever got together. So we were just very we've definitely lived many lives together for sure. Um, but during our relationship, or before we got together, he was in another relationship and had a kid with his ex. So literally our entire relationship, you know, he and we were like in and out of court, and kind of like this battle between him and his ex of like custody and all of this kind of stuff. And you know, over many years I finally realized like they had their own very deeply like karmic relationship working together, which I finally had to like opt out of and remove myself from. We're still friends, but in terms of, so I guess that's been part of my experience of like knowing when it was time to extract myself from that karmic relationship, which I can get to in a minute. But kind of related to what you were saying, what I realized doing some like really deep shadow work last year, I started doing mirror work, which is so freaking powerful, where you're literally just like sitting with yourself in front of the mirror having conversations about like, what is this really about? And what I had realized was, because it's like, why did I put myself in that situation for like over 7 years, where I was sharing my whole relationship with another woman, even though like everything was out in the open. It's not like they were together, like,
Yeah.
but I had put myself in a situation where half of my man's attention was going to another woman.
Yeah.
And, and when I started really looking more deeply at myself, I was like, holy shit, I've never had a full-time relationship. I grew up an only child, going back and forth between my mom and dad. My parents were actually never married, never together, except for when they had me. Essentially, they never continued their relationship. I had become in this relationship with him, which was, even though we lived together and he was very emotionally available and all of those things, but like it really wasn't full time, to the point of like, it's just you and this person. And
Yeah.
I just started to notice this pattern of like, whoa, I was actually programmed for just sort of these part-time relationships. And so that's been like some deep work in myself of like, how do I really be all in with somebody while also honoring like my innate desire for a lot of spaciousness. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Which is interesting. And these are, eventually I'd love to have like a relationship coach come on here, because
Mhm.
there's still things I'm obviously learning about myself. But I think that's so interesting about the parents and what's comfortable. You're always going to seek what's comfortable to you, and
Yeah.
almost like reliving history, because you were. I don't know if your parents went to court or anything. It was kind of like you were living something in your brain, but
Well,
it's yeah, go for it.
that's such a great point. I'm glad you brought that up. So, and I was so lucky that like my parents never went to court. That was never, um, like I never had to deal with anything like that at all. But you're totally right. Like I was reliving this because I became a stepmom. So I like, have raised my stepson with, I call him my godson now, because that kind of feels more like what
Yeah,
our karmic connection really is anyway. And we still have a great relationship. And so, but again, this is part of the really deep work that I've had to do, was like, this was totally a mirror of my own childhood in one way or another, and enabled me to like work out a lot of karmic patterns. And and I think that's really the thing, and tying this all into the twin flame thing, is it's doing all of this shadow work, like really looking at yourself, looking where your patterns are created from, and like really diving deep into how relationships were modeled to you as a child. So like, if you feel like you've got this twin flame thing going on, and it feels like a push and pull kind of like Romeo and Juliet agonizing kind of thing. It's like, well, was that mirrored to you in one way or another, like growing up? Like, why is it that why are you a vibrational match to that?
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's kind of also looking at the story and then detaching from the story. It's like if I tell myself the story of my dad was emotionally unavailable, you know, then I tell this story. And the thing about stories is, and this was just basically a retreat I had done this summer. It's called The Work with Byron Katie. If you have a chance, I would highly recommend looking into it because it basically, like, she gives out these worksheets and she has you basically fill out talk about somebody that annoys you, and then, or somebody that like has hurt you, somebody that's frustrated you, and then there's this whole worksheet where you describe the situation. So say if I were working with my dad, like my dad, and I've really healed a lot with my father, so I almost don't feel right sharing certain things because I've already, but it'd be like, okay, say you have father daddy issues. My father ignored me, neglected me. I'm not saying mine did, just in case he listens. But it's like my father ignored me, neglected me. What was one instance that you felt this way? So then it's like you fill this out, you fill all this stuff out, and basically then you go in and you try on. And she always says, just try it on. You don't have to buy the shoe, just try it on. And it could be like, I ignored and neglected my father. How does that resonate? Like, how does this, like, I never like he never appreciated me. It could easily be spun around as I never appreciated him. And I feel like that's some work that I did with my stories, like the stories I constantly tell myself. Our memory likes to deceive us sometimes. So even with like a romantic relationship, it's like and that's kind of what I was working on at the time. I was like, he lied to me, he did this to me, he did this to me, and then I spin it back around and I'm like, first, like, I lied to him, and then basically it segues you into, I lied to me,
Yeah,
I did this to me, I did this to me. And it's like a really interesting process that I feel like um everybody should check out, because it's kind of that, what would your life be like if you didn't tell yourself this story every single day? You
totally.
know, what kind of love would you attract into your life if this wasn't your story? If you weren't cheated on 22 times or however many, you know, because there's always that story like, well, five guys have cheated on me. And normally when people tell me that, I love to play devil's advocate and I'm like, well, there seems to be a common denominator in all those situations. And I'm
Yeah.
not laughing to be like judgmental, but that's a question you should ask yourself. I'm the common denominator. So that was like for me, I'm like, wow, all these guys with girlfriends, I'm the common denominator.
Mhm. Well, and I think that's such an important thing to talk about. And, what I would say to that, like, if you've had a pattern of maybe men or people lying to you or cheating on you, and I've totally been there too, like, my first 2 boyfriends cheated on me, lied about it, and then, finally found out, and definitely hasn't happened, since then because I did a lot of shadow work around it, and I think that's really the key here, again, that we keep reiterating is, like, that this is the work to stop those patterns, like, and they're gonna keep replaying until you do this deep work. And so what I would say is, like, um how are you lying to yourself? If you're noticing people in your life that are lying to you, cheating on you, how are
Yeah.
you lying to yourself, and how are you cheating on yourself? Like, if,
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
right? It's
Mhm.
everything is a mirror. And so if you're not being, and so many people talk about, like, oh, they lied to me, or da 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 da. And it's like, but you're actually lying to yourself so often just about these littlest things. And I don't even mean they have to be big, huge lies. It's like, if you're just not being honest about who you are, you'll get lied to, and it's like, this is
Yeah.
logical reasoning.
Oh, that's so good. That's so true.
Right? Like, this is why I've totally in the last, like, yeah, year and a half, I've just, like, really upped the ante on my, like, radical honesty, just while still being, like, loving and compassionate, but it's like, I literally will not lie, even if it's the tiniest little thing, because I know it's just going to show up in my reality like immediately. And that's the thing, I think, when you're on this path of ascension, like, it seems like manifestations are happening faster and faster and faster. And so I know, like, if I was to tell like the smallest little lie, then I have to assume that someone in my reality is going to be showing up shortly who's going to be lying to me, and I just, like, I don't have time for that.
Yeah, that's so good. And that's kind of, I'm currently obviously single right now, and and that's something I also want to reiterate. It's okay to be alone. It's okay to be single. I feel like in our culture, because I have some friends that'll always message me and be like, everybody had boyfriends there, and I just kind of, I try not to let myself listen to that and get stressed out, because I'm like, well, I'm single too.
Mm,
That, like, you get in down this downward spiral. But for me, like, especially during this time doing all this shadow work myself, because a lot of stuff for me has come up during this quarantine where I'm like, and what you say about the lying thing, it's like, yeah, I don't think I'm ready to be fully present, real, and honest in a connection. So, what's best for me right now is to be alone, is to work through those things so that I can manifest the best person for me, instead of manifesting, like you said, a liar or a cheater who's going to come at me based on my vibration. And I'm not ready. I'm just not ready to be honest in a connection. And that's okay.
yeah.
That's just highlighting something that I need to face and work through.
And I think that's the biggest thing here, to really give people permission, like, wherever you're at right now is okay. It's really like acknowledging and again, just being honest with yourself of like, this is where I'm at, and like, what a great indication of like what I need to work on.
Yeah, because even I just set the intention that, like, the next relationship I have, I want to really heal those self-worth thing. And I think starting from the beginning of the year, I've really been working with the affirmations, like, it is safe to be loved. To it is safe to love myself. It is like, just being
Yeah.
safe. And then from there, it's like I worked into this, I allow love into my life. And it's still kind of working on that safety thing. Because for me, I feel like at my core, it's a safety issue. I feel unsafe. And that's something that I have to work through before I manifest somebody into my life, a bad experience that's going to catapult me into my dark little place again. I don't want that. I want to be fully healed when I enter a new relationship. And if that's not for another couple months, couple years, then fine, so be it.
Yeah.
But this is how we avoid these, like, painful relationships. And yes, they're meant to teach you there, but you don't have to go through these in order to heal. You don't have to go through these intense traumatic situations. It can be easy.
Mm,
Kind of like how you always say, like, what if it were easy?
yeah.
Like, I don't have to put myself through another person, kind of, to teach me a lesson. Like, just learn the damn lesson.
And then it's like, but like practicing the visualization and the energy of
Yeah.
it being easy, right? So many of us, we think of like, when you think of like falling in love, a lot of people associate that to like getting hurt. And
Yeah.
so if that's your predominant, if that's what you're like, you keep going back to, well, then you're gonna block yourself from having the love that you want. And also you're gonna manifest that hurt happening even faster because
Totally. And I had, oh my God, this is so funny that you bring that up, because I had written out like a prompt for a post that I'm gonna post on Wednesday, which will probably be way behind this time. No, but it's about that. It's about getting comfortable with the fact that disappointment is going to happen way more times in your life, or just overcome, like realizing, and that's another Byron Katie thing. So shout out to her because she kind of does at the end of all of this. She said, because she asked that question, she's like, what do you never want to happen again? And it's like, I never want to feel hurt again. And then she makes you change that at the end to, I will probably get hurt again.
Mm, so
And it's like, at first I was so confused by that. But then I was like now I kind of get it. And I was telling somebody else the other day, I'm like, God, you fear disappointment so much that you're creating it, you're manifesting it. So
yeah.
instead of expecting disappointment, we just have to accept it. Like we have to accept that, it's probably going to happen more times in our lives. Like we're probably going to feel that feeling again. But the positive thing is that you've already dealt with so much disappointment that you're kind of an expert at
Mm.
it.
Yeah, this also makes me think of one of my favorite quotes that I've really been practicing in the last 2 years is using conflict as opportunities to deepen intimacy. So, this is such a powerful, like, it's like maybe I need to say that again, but using conflict as an opportunity to deepen intimacy, which was kind of what you were saying about um feeling disappointed. That was the word you used?
Yeah.
Yeah, where it's like, you know, again, the person that you're dealing with, and this can be work situations, romantic situations, friendships, right? Like
Mhm.
any type of, say, disagreement or conflict, or I mean, if you're feeling disappointed in someone, it's because they didn't show up for you in the way that maybe like you were hoping, right? And so,
Yeah.
like, if you can really start to practice this art of communication and being honest with yourself and being honest with the other person, and like use these containers to like deepen the intimacy between you and another, and like really getting, and this is like, so again, this is such a practice, like this is like
Yeah.
I'm learning
Totally.
more about this every day, and it's the biggest part is doing your own shadow work and being honest with yourself before you ever think that another person owes that to you. And it's,
Yeah.
you can really only get there with another person until when you've done it with yourself. And when you can do that, it's like, whoa, like you just, it's so much easier to navigate kind of conflict and disappointment, because then when you realize it's coming from like your own inner child wound, and then the other person, romantic or business, whatever, it's whoever you're dealing with, it's like, oh, their inner child was triggered by this too, and that's why they responded in the way they did. And it's just like our inner children were like feeling so scared, and that,
Yeah.
you
Oh,
know.
that's so true. I know. So, being a Virgo, my ruling planet's Mercury, so I'm huge on communication, and that's something that in a relationship I need. Like, if we get into an argument, my big thing is like, I don't want to argue right now. I want to talk. I want to get through this. Why? This is how you're making me feel. And I kind of like learned to not be afraid of that. I feel really attacked right now. I'm not saying that it's you, but this is how I'm feeling. And I want to present you with how I'm feeling.
Yeah.
And then I've learned that, a lot of people react to that actually really well. And especially, you know, men. Like men that I've been with have been like, okay, you took that out of context. That's not what I mean. I'm sorry that I made you feel that way, but you did this and I didn't like that. And instead of being like, no, like how dare you say that? Like I'm like, okay, I'll listen to that. I'll observe that. I'll look into that.
Mhm.
Because if I want somebody to be that way for me, then I have to be that way for somebody else. So even with my friendships, I try to be really open and like, this is how I'm feeling. I'm sorry that you feel attacked right now. I don't mean it in that way. This is just sometimes how I communicate when I'm excited about something. And I've just learned to notice that people that are constantly looking to argue with me, that's when I don't give energy to it. I just decide this person's not getting what I'm saying. I'm not going to continue to give my energy to this.
Yeah.
So I think that's like that whole disappointment conversation. You can avoid the disappointment by being open, by being honest. Yes, that is a practice thing. And then when you're open and honest and that person is either nasty and rude back to you, maybe that's not something you want in your energy if it triggers you to be that way. And also in that moment of honesty, if that person is honest with you, please, 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 please listen to them. Listen to them and accept what they're saying just as you would want them to listen to you. So if that person is in that moment saying, I do not want a relationship right now,
Yeah.
and then you're continuing to pursue this relationship and continuing to get upset in moments where they are not acting like they're in a relationship, that's when you have to look back at yourself.
Yeah. And I love, yeah, that's such a good point. Like, I love the quote, or people say it's like, people will tell you very early on who they are. And
Yeah.
we often, I think, especially as women, we try and like whatever, put on the rose-colored glasses and be like, "Oh, but we've got so much potential," and we have this tendency to fall in love with potential. Um,
Yeah.
more of those maybe red flags, and so just like, and that's something that again I am consciously practicing more and more. So as I'm, you know, in this reality now where I'm like single as, you know, a 32-year-old woman. I'm dating kind of for the first time really in my life in the last 6 months, and just really being conscious of what men are saying early on, and letting them like show me who they are and not ignore the things that like, oh, like maybe he won't always be that way. It's like,
Yeah.
you know,
But also not going in with like a preconceived, like fitting them into a role type of thing too,
yeah,
being
yeah,
like, every guy's been like this, so this one's gonna be the same. Let me see how's this one gonna disappoint me type of thing. That's what I've had to learn a lot about doing, is like really getting away from that feeling of like, how's this one gonna do it?
right. And I think that's, again, it's such a mirror of when you're really present with yourself and not judging yourself and just honoring your where you are. It's so much easier to honor a man where he is.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of times where, especially in one of my situations, and this is a testament to what you said, people will always show you who you are. There's another line that I like. It's like, how you do one thing is how you do everything.
Love
So there's a guy in my life who, it's like, he's a very successful person in his field of work. He's very, very successful at the top of his tier, knows how to work hard, and then decides not to put any effort whatsoever towards building a connection with me, towards doing any of this stuff. And I kind of had a realization one day where I'm like, you know what? This guy knows how to work hard for something he really wants.
Mm,
So that just reflected to me. It was like I read between the lines there. And yeah, that's not fun to look at and be like, he knows how to work hard for what he wants. I see it all throughout his life. He just doesn't really want me. And that has nothing to do with me. Maybe he's more focused on other things at the moment. But the day that he comes forward to me, um, full force, like actually working hard for me, then I'll know he really wants me. If he ever does. Like, that's not setting an expectation. That's just saying, like, he's showing himself in other parts of his life, and you kind of have to take note of that. If you're going for somebody who in all other aspects of their life, they're putting all this effort forward, they're really, and then they're just not showing up for the relationship, then, but that's my own personal experience. So
I love that you brought this up because I love that quote too, and I remind myself that all the time for my own personal life, like how you do one thing is how you do everything, and then I can kind of like, okay, I'm really good at doing this one thing, so I can kind of piggyback that belief in other areas of my life, but I've never thought about it in terms of how we look at other people. Like that's a really, because that can give us so much insight.
yeah, totally. Because they're right there. He's telling me who he is. He's somebody who works really hard. So when he's like, I don't like to make an effort, I'm like, that's a lie.
Mm.
That's a lie, because you make an effort in all other places of your life. You don't really want to make one for me. You're hoping you get lucky.
Mm.
And that's a self-worth thing. It's like, no, I want you to work hard for me. I want you to put an effort in. I know it's there.
And this is such a good topic to and we'll have to start wrapping things up here in
Yeah.
a minute, but about really, and it's like doing all these things, doing all these practices, seeing the mirror, but then also kind of surrendering to divine timing, because even though maybe we're doing all the work, maybe it is the person for us, but maybe God, we're in a season of our life where God actually needs us to be single. Like maybe
Yeah.
if, Jen and I were both like whatever, falling in love, or we're in relationships, like this podcast wouldn't be starting in this exact way. And so it's almost like, I don't know, that's something that I've been working on a lot in my own life, and like seeing how God has guided me to like live very remotely right now, and like kind of really out of the way, is almost like put me in this sort of like bubble of like, I've been dating, but there's a lot of, a fair bit of distance in between like people that I can see. And it's like, I have to kind of like, okay, like this is where I ended up. Like this is where he brought me in. And it's, that ties into when we pray, like we always get what we ask for, and we have
Yeah.
to be willing to though really receive those answered prayers, and trust, like if you're in a season of being single, like honor that.
Yeah, exactly. And just like as a testament, that person who shows up does no effort, and I kind of am straightforward. I'm like, yeah, you're not getting anywhere with me unless you decide to actually give a shit.
Oh,
Um, Let me just say that person frequently does his cycle back and like tries again, and
mm,
sometimes he'll make more of an effort, but I've kind of just allowed that to be what it is. Like now I just really don't even respond to the messages.
mhm.
Um, but if you're worried about losing somebody forever, then it's like if you actually do, based off you having like that, you standing up for yourself, then they're not meant to be on your path. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's
And
a
I
great time to be single, I feel like.
Yeah, and maybe to kind of wrap things up and something
Yeah.
interesting for, people to think about, and this is something we've talked about, and that we kind of have in common, where we kind of realize like, okay, we've had this tendency to maybe attract unavailability in one way or another. Maybe they're emotionally unavailable, maybe they're actually physically unavailable, but they are emotionally available, whatever that is. And then realizing like, okay, whoa, wait, if everything's a mirror, like maybe we're unavailable.
Yeah, totally.
And so like if that's been your experience in any way, like yeah, I would just invite you to kind of do that self-reflection and see how are you really showing up to life and to yourself. And
Yourself. Yeah, first and foremost, how are you showing up for yourself?
mhm,
And are you available to the people around you? That's kind of, I guess, my last 2 cents I'll give. We're so focused on somebody that's not available to us, that's not even in our sphere of vision, in our presence, that sometimes we can be out to dinner with people, we can be around people, and we're not present for those people. We're somewhere else, or we're talking about this situation, and we're losing sight of the gift that is right in front of us. And that's like, I feel like you have to kind of establish, if you want to deepen your relationships, you have to work on deepening them all, being present with the people that you are with. That's going to help you be in the moment, and help you kind of become available to yourself and become available to the people who are available to you.
amen. I love it. I think that's a beautiful place to wrap up, and yeah, I think that's just so beautifully put.
Totally. I that one feels really powerful.
Yeah. So we would love to hear from you guys. Like, let us know what these conversations are making you feel. Like, we want to hear, like, if we say something and you're like, oh my gosh, like dots are connecting, I'm realizing why I'm attracting these things over and over again, like, you know we would love to hear that from you. So don't hesitate to reach out and follow us on the social medias, and definitely let us know specifically like what topics are you loving, and we'll do our best to do more of those.
Yes, totally. But thank you guys for tuning in for another episode. And we can't wait to, yeah, talk to you guys again. But hopefully you're all having a wonderful week. And yeah, we'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for listening. Be sure to follow us over on Instagram at Modern Life Mystic Woman, where we're sharing inspirational writing and magical lifestyle tips on the daily.
And if you loved this show, let us know. Subscribe, comment, shoot us a DM, whatever your style, and make sure to share it with all your spiritual besties.
See you next time.